Lyra's heart pounded as she was pushed along the cobbled streets of the capital. The city smelled of smoke, iron, and fear. Shadows of tall towers stretched like dark fingers over the narrow alleys. Her hands were bound with rough rope, and she struggled, but the guards' grips were firm. Around her, other captives whispered, their voices trembling. This was the night of the mating auction, a place where power ruled, and freedom was a dream. The square opened before her, lit by torches that burned gold against the night. Nobles in heavy cloaks lined the balconies, their eyes cold, hungry. Some wore masks of jewels and silver, hiding expressions Lyra did not want to know. On a raised platform, the auctioneer's voice rang out, smooth and cruel. He called out names, one after another. As if summoning prey, Lyra's stomach churned. She had heard stories girls and women chosen not for love, but for strength, lineage, or the whim of powerful alphas. Many never returned. Many never left at all. Her chest tightened, and she tried to calm her shaking legs. She was not like the others. Her blood held something old and wild, a force she barely understood. Then she saw him, a shadow among shadows, yet impossible to ignore. Kale, tall, broad, with eyes like dark amber fire. He did not smile. He did not speak. Yet his gaze found hers, cutting through the crowd as if he could see her very soul. Lyra felt it immediately, a strange, magnetic pull that twisted her fear into something she did not understand. She looked away, but her heartbeat betrayed her. The auctioneer called her name. Her legs moved as if of their own will, but her mind screamed for her to run. Lyra's bare feet touched the cold stones, and she tried to appear small, invisible, but the platform had already drawn her into its cruel light. Kale's eyes followed her step by step. The air between them seemed charged, humming with something old and dangerous. She could feel it, a scent, a presence, a power that called to hers. She had never met him, yet she knew she would never forget him. The auctioneer raised a jeweled hand. "Step forward, Lyra," he commanded. "Do not resist. The bids will decide your fate." Lyra swallowed hard. Around her, whispers grew into murmurs. Noble voices compared her to her mother, her grandmother, even her unknown ancestors. She had always felt like a shadow in her own life. But here, every eye burned into her, demanding she be someone she had never wanted to be. Her mind raced. She could endure this, she told herself. She could survive. But the fire inside her would not allow her to be taken. Not like this. Not ever. Kale's eyes narrowed. And in that instant, Lyra knew. He could sense her will. He could see the defiance in her heart. And for reasons she could not explain, she felt both terrified and... Then, the auctioneer raised his hand again. "Who will bid for this one? Who will claim her tonight?" A hush fell. The crowd waited, expectant, hungry. And somewhere, deep in the shadows, Lyra heard the faintest growl, not from a beast, but from a man. Kale. Her instincts screamed. She could not stay. She could not be caught. She had no idea what powers she carried, or what she could do. But she knew one thing. Clearly. She would not be a possession. Lyra's eyes scanned the crowd, desperate for escape. The balconies were high, but the shadows offered cover. A narrow alley led away from the square, if she could only reach it. She tensed her muscles, ready to run. The auctioneer's voice thundered again. "Do I hear a bid?" But Lyra did not answer. She ran. Her feet pounded against the stones, her lungs burned, and the crowd gasped in shock. Some reached out, trying to stop her. But she was faster, smaller, wilder. She darted into the alley, slipping past barrels, crates, and overturned carts. The night embraced her like a cloak, hiding her movements. Behind her, She heard a shout. Guards. Cale's presence seemed to flicker in her mind, though she did not dare look back. His scent, like smoke and rain and something untamed, followed her. She could almost feel his eyes on her. Burning, unyielding, and yet, something else. Something softer, almost desperate. Lyra ran through winding streets. The city growing stranger the further she went. Twisted statues and crumbling walls seemed to watch her flight, whispering secrets in the wind. She knew the city was alive with magic old and dangerous, and it had chosen to shield her for reasons she could not yet understand. Finally, she reached the outskirts, where the city ended, and the forests began. Dark trees loomed like giants, their branches scratching the sky. The air was cold and smelled of moss and earth. Lyra slowed, listening. Only the wind answered her, only the distant hoot of an owl. She collapsed against the trunk of a tree, her chest heaving, her hands raw from her struggles. She had escaped, for now, but she could not shake the feeling that she was being watched. Not by ordinary eyes. Something powerful, ancient, and relentless was tracking her, even now. Her mind flashed back to Cale's eyes, their fire, their depth. She shivered. She wanted to hate him, wanted to fear him, yet something inside her trembled with a strange longing. Was it possible to feel drawn to someone who was supposed to be her enemy? The thought made her stomach twist. Lyra knew she could not stay in one place. The forest was full of shadows, but it was better than the square. She had to keep moving. She had to survive long enough to understand who she was and what she could do. She walked deeper into the woods, each step cautious but determined. The night grew colder, the moonlight weaving through the trees like silver threads. And then, she stopped. A sound, a soft, deliberate footstep behind her. Her breath caught. She spun around, her hands reaching for anything she could use to defend herself. But the shadows held nothing. At least, nothing she could see. And then she felt it. The air shifting, the wind carrying a scent she knew she would never forget. Fire and smoke, rain and earth, and beneath it all, something darker, deeper. Kyle. Lyra's heart raced. She had escaped the square, the auction, the cruel grasp of the nobles, but she could not escape him. Not truly. Not when he smelled her, hunted her, called her in his dreams. She backed into the hollow of an ancient tree, trying to hide, trying to disappear into the night. The forest was silent, but the tension was unbearable. She could almost hear her own heartbeat, echoing through the darkness. And then, a shadow moved at the edge of the clearing. Tall, brooding, silent. Kyle. He did not speak. He did not run. He simply stood, watching her with those amber eyes that burned with something fierce, something alive. Lyra wanted to run again, but her legs refused to obey. Cale's voice, low and calm, reached her ears, though he was still at a distance. Lyra. The sound of her name, spoken like a spell, froze her. It was not cruel. It was not commanding. It was urgent, necessary. Lyra swallowed hard, trying to find her voice. "Stay back," she whispered. "I will not be yours." Kyle's expression did not change, but the tension in the air thickened, almost tangible. He tilted his head, studying her, and for a moment, the forest itself seemed to hold its breath. "You cannot run forever," he said quietly, almost mournfully. Lyra's hands clenched into fists. She did not know whether to feel anger or fear. She did not know whether to fight him, flee him, or listen to him. But one thing was certain. Her life had changed forever. The forest whispered around them, and somewhere in the distance, the wind carried a chilling truth. The hunt had only begun. Lyra's escape was complete for now. But Kael would not rest. And deep down, she knew that no matter how far she ran, the Alpha, who smelled her in his dreams, would find her. The night stretched on, dark and endless, as Lyra hid beneath the hollow tree, trying to summon courage for what was to come. And somewhere, beyond the shadows, Kael watched and waited, bound to her by a fate neither of them fully understood. The hunt had begun. Lyra did not sleep that night. She sat beneath the hollow tree, shivering from cold and fear, her mind racing with thoughts of the auction and the amber-eyed Alpha who had followed her. Kael's presence lingered like smoke, unseen yet undeniable. She could almost feel him in the wind, in the rustle of the leaves, in the beating of her own heart. By dawn, she had moved deeper into the forest, following paths that only someone with knowledge of the land could take. Her feet were raw from running, her clothes torn, but her determination burned brighter than her exhaustion. She had survived the auction. She would survive the Alpha. She had to. The forest was strange, alive in ways she did not fully understand. Twisted trees seemed to bend toward her, their bark rough like aged skin. Shadows shifted, hiding or revealing themselves as if the forest itself were testing her. Every step was careful, measured, yet she could not shake the feeling of being hunted. Hours passed, and Lyra began to feel the weight of loneliness. She longed for someone to trust, someone to help her make sense of the strange, dark world she had been thrown into. She stumbled upon a small clearing where the sunlight filtered through thick branches, and a quiet river ran beside it. The water was crystal clear, and for a moment she allowed herself to breathe, to drink, to feel like a human again. But even here, she was not alone. A rustle in the bushes startled her. She grabbed a branch, ready to defend herself, her heart hammering. Out stepped a figure. Not Kael, but a woman, draped in dark, flowing garments. Her eyes were sharp, her movements graceful and silent. "You are far from the city," the woman said, her voice soft but commanding. "Few come here and live." Lyra lowered the branch slightly, though her guard remained high. "Who are you?" she asked. "Are you a friend?" The woman's lips curved into a faint, enigmatic smile. "I am called Celine, and you, Lyra, are not as ordinary as you believe." Lyra frowned. "I don't understand." Celine stepped closer, her gaze piercing. "The blood in your veins is ancient. Hidden power sleeps within you. That power is why you were chosen for the auction. That power is why the Alpha hunts you now." Lyra's pulse quickened. Power? Ancient blood? She had always sensed something different about herself. A force she could not explain. A strength that sometimes flared unexpectedly. But she had never imagined it could draw the attention of a being like Kael. "Why me?" she asked, her voice trembling. "Why would anyone want me? Or fear me?" Celine's eyes softened slightly. "Because you are part of a balance older than the kingdom itself. You carry the key to a curse no one dares speak aloud. The auctions, the Alphas, even the rulers, they are pawns of forces far older and far darker." Lyra's mind spun. Change it? How could she? A young woman who had barely escaped with her life, possibly challenge the very foundation of the world she had known. Celine reached out, placing a hand lightly on Lyra's shoulder. "You must learn quickly. They will come for you, whether by dreams or by force. The Alpha, he is not just a hunter. He is bound to you in ways neither of you yet understand." Lyra swallowed hard. Bound? To Kael? The thought made her stomach twist. She had fled to avoid being claimed, to escape a life of submission. Yet somehow, fate had entangled her with the very being she feared. Celine turned her gaze toward the forest edge, her expression suddenly tense. He is near, she warned. You cannot hide forever. The bond smells the truth, and he will not rest until he finds you. Lyra's pulse raced. She wanted to deny it, to tell herself she could fight, she could run, she could survive without Cale. But the air was thick, almost alive, carrying a scent that made her knees weak. It was him, Cale. Before she could respond, a branch snapped sharply behind her. She spun, and there he was, stepping into the clearing like a shadow come to life. His presence was commanding, terrifying, and yet strangely magnetic. Lyra, Cale said, his voice low, almost a growl, yet threaded with something softer. Do not hide. It will only make the bond stronger. Lyra's hands trembled. I am not yours, she said firmly, though her voice lacked conviction. Cale's amber eyes softened for a brief moment, but the intensity remained. You are not yet mine, he admitted, but I am bound to you. Whether you want it or not. Your blood, your scent, they call me. I do not know why. I do not understand it. But I feel it. And it will not let me turn away. Lyra backed away, her fear and confusion warring with a strange pull she could not deny. He was terrifying. And yet, she could feel something in his presence that was not cruelty. Something protective. Something yearning. Celine's voice cut through the tension. The bond is older than you. It is not merely desire, it is fate, twisted by the curse. Neither of you can ignore it, nor can you resist it forever. Cale took a step closer, careful, as if measuring his approach. I do not want to hurt you, he said. I only need to know you, to understand. If you allow me, I will keep you safe. From the hunters, from the curse, from everything that would take you from this world. Lyra's mind raced. Could she trust him? Could she risk letting someone so powerful, so relentless, stand by her side? Every instinct screamed to run. Every fear told her to fight. And yet, the pull she felt toward him was undeniable. Almost like the forest itself was guiding her heart toward him. You cannot run forever, Cale repeated, his voice almost a whisper now, blending with the wind. And you will not survive alone. Lyra swallowed hard. She wanted to argue, to flee, to deny the strange connection that seemed to bind them. But deep inside, she knew he was right. The forest, the curse, the hunters, they were all waiting for the moment she faltered. Alone, she would not last long. Celine stepped back into the shadows, her warning clear. Learn your power, Lyra. Trust carefully. The alpha follows not just your scent, but your spirit. The stronger you are, the stronger the bond will become. And the more dangerous the hunter grows. Cale's eyes never left Lyra. Do you understand? He asked. His voice was quiet, almost pleading. I will not harm you. Not if you let me help. But you must trust me, even a little. Lyra's throat was tight. She wanted to refuse. She wanted to run. But the truth rang in her mind like a bell in the darkness. She could not survive this alone. She could not hide from fate, from the curse, or from him. She nodded slowly, barely audible. I will try. Cale's lips curved into a fleeting, almost invisible smile. That is all I ask, he said. Then, without another word, he turned toward the deeper forest, signaling her to follow. Lyra hesitated for a moment, heart pounding, then took a step after him. The forest swallowed them both, shadows and light twisting around their forms like living threads. Every rustle of leaves, every distant sound of snapping branches made her pulse race. Yet she walked beside him, trusting him in a way she had never trusted anyone before. They moved silently for hours, the forest thickening around them. Lyra began to notice subtle signs of magic in the air, the way the shadows bent, the soft glow of hidden runes carved into stone, the whispers of the wind carrying words she could not quite understand. She realized that the world she had known, the city, the auction, even her own life, was only a small part of something far larger, darker, and more dangerous. And somewhere in the distance, hidden behind trees and mist, eyes watched them. Not Kale's. Something older. Something that had sent the auction, the hunters, and even Kale on this path. The real threat had yet to reveal itself. Lyra shivered and pulled her cloak tighter. She could not see it, could not sense it, but she knew instinctively that the hunt had only begun. Kale's presence beside her was a comfort, yet also a reminder of the danger that lingered just beyond the shadows. Her chest tightened. She had survived the auction. She had evaded the city, the guards, the hunters. But the forest, the bond, the curse, everything was closing in, and she had no idea what lay ahead. As they stopped near a cliff overlooking a valley, Kale finally spoke again, his voice low and serious. Lyra, the world you knew is gone. The one who hunts you is not just a man or an alpha. They are a force older than kingdoms. You must be ready, or you will not survive the dawn. 40, there wasn't a visit. 40, 40, 40, 40, 40, 40, 40. Lyra's eyes widened. She wanted to protest. She wanted to run. But the wind carried the distant echo of a howl, a sound that was both terrifying and familiar. Her heart sank as she realized the hunt was far from over. She turned to Kale, her voice barely a whisper. What do we do? Kale's amber eyes burned with determination. We survive. Together. The forest seemed to shiver around them, shadows stretching like fingers into the valley below. Lyra gripped her cloak, her pulse racing, and for the first time, she understood. The chase was no longer just about escaping. It was about surviving a fate that neither of them could ignore and neither of them could run from. The night pressed on, dark and alive. And somewhere, far ahead, the real hunter stirred, waiting for the moment to strike. The forest grew darker as night approached, thick branches weaving a shadowed ceiling above Lyra and Kale. Every step they took was careful, their senses alert. The distant howl of wolves echoed through the trees, sending shivers down Lyra's spine. She felt more alive than ever, yet the danger pressed around her like a living thing. Kale walked beside her, silent and imposing, yet his eyes never left her. There was something in the way he watched her, a mix of protectiveness and something deeper, something he could not name. Lyra sensed it, even as fear tightened her chest. You trust me more than I expected, Kale said quietly, breaking the tense silence. His voice was low, measured, but carried a warmth she had not felt from him before. Lyra frowned, tightening her cloak around her shoulders. I have no choice. I can't run forever, and if I stay alone, I'll die. Her words were harsh, but honest. She did not want to admit the strange relief she felt in his presence. Kale nodded slowly, understanding her fear. And yet you hesitate. You feel the bond as I do, but you resist it. Lyra's stomach twisted. The bond. She had tried to ignore it, to focus on survival, but it was impossible. She could feel Kale, even when he was silent, even when he did not speak. It was as though some invisible thread tied them together, pulling them toward each other whether they wanted it or not. Why do you follow me? She asked, unable to hide the tension in her voice. Why can't you leave me to survive alone? Why? Kale's amber eyes darkened, like fire caught in shadows. Because I cannot. My instincts, my dreams, they call for you. I do not understand why, but I cannot let you face this world alone. You are too important, too dangerous. And yet, I am bound to you, in ways even I do not comprehend. End quote. Lyra swallowed hard, her pulse racing. The words should have terrified her, yet they stirred something she could not ignore. A strange trust. A dangerous hope. She had fought so hard to be free, to escape the auction, and now she faced a truth she could not run from. As they moved deeper into the forest, the air shifted. The shadows became heavier, twisting unnaturally, and a chill ran down Lyra's spine. Cale stopped, crouching slightly, his hand brushing against hers as he pointed toward a narrow path leading into a mist-filled hollow. "Something is ahead," he said. "We are not alone." Lyra's heart pounded. She had begun to feel more confident, more capable. Yet the forest reminded her that she was still very much a stranger to its dangers. A low growl reverberated through the trees, and she realized they were being watched by more than just eyes, they were being tested. From the mist emerged a figure, draped in black and silver robes, their face hidden beneath a hood. The air seemed to thicken, carrying a heavy weight that pressed on Lyra's chest. Magic. Powerful. Ancient. Magic. "Lyra," the figure said, voice echoing strangely, almost like a whisper carried on the wind. "You are far from your cage. Yet you cannot escape your fate. You carry the power of old blood, and the Alpha follows you. But the choice is yours." Cale stepped in front of Lyra, his posture protective, his muscles tense. "Who are you?" he demanded. The figure lifted a hand, revealing pale fingers etched with glowing runes. "I am the Keeper. I guard the balance. The auctions, the hunters, the alphas, they are bound by a curse older than this kingdom. You, Lyra, have the chance to break it." Lyra's mind spun. She had thought survival was enough, but survival was only the beginning. She had to understand her power, her blood, and the curse that had made her a prize in the auction and a target in the forest. Cale's voice softened. "Whatever this is, I will not leave you. I will stand by you, no matter the danger." The Keeper studied them both, eyes glowing faintly beneath the hood. "The bond between you is ancient. The hunter and the hunted, they are two halves of a whole. The curse manipulates desire and fear, power and obedience. Break the bond, and the curse may claim you both. Embrace it, and you may survive, if only barely." Lyra felt a cold shiver run through her. The forest, the auction, Cale. Everything had led to this. She realized the weight of her choices. Every step, every breath, every heartbeat mattered. And yet, she could not ignore the pull she felt toward Cale, dangerous as it was. "I do not understand," she whispered. "Why me? Why him? Why now?" The Keeper lifted a hand, and a shimmer of energy surrounded Lyra, highlighting her veins with silver light. "Because you carry the key. You are the one who can end the curse, or the one who will be destroyed by it. The Alpha, he is your reflection, your protector, and your greatest challenge. Trust is your weapon. Fear is your prison." Lyra's pulse raced. She wanted to run. She wanted to refuse. But the truth settled over her like a shadow she could not escape. Cale and she were bound, and the bond carried both danger and hope. Cale stepped closer, lowering his voice to a near whisper. "I know you fear me. And you should. But you are stronger than you realize, Lyra. I will not command you, nor claim you by force. I will fight beside you, if you allow it." Lyra's lips trembled, torn between fear and the strange, undeniable pull she felt. Her power surged in response, almost reacting to Cale's presence, lighting her veins like fire beneath her skin. The air around them hummed with energy. "We must move," the Keeper said abruptly. "The curse grows stronger at night. Creatures born of the auctions will come for you. Only together can you survive until the dawn." Lyra nodded, swallowing the lump in her throat. She could feel Cale's strength beside her, steady and unyielding. For the first time since the auction, She allowed herself to believe that survival was possible not alone, but together. They moved silently through the forest, shadows clinging to them like water. Every rustle of leaves, every distant howl, made her pulse quicken. Lyra's senses were heightened, her instincts sharper than ever. She realized that her blood, her heritage, her very being, was more than a target. It was a weapon, a key to survival, a force she could wield if she embraced it. Hours passed, and the night deepened. The forest seemed to breathe around them, alive and watchful. Cale kept his distance, but never let go of her presence. Lyra could feel his focus, his caution, his restraint. Yet, she sensed the inner struggle within him, the desire to claim her, the fear of losing control, the tension between duty and instinct. Suddenly, a low growl broke the quiet. Shadows shifted, coalescing into forms that were neither human nor beast. Their eyes glowed faintly in the darkness, and their movements were unnatural, twisted by magic. Lyra froze. Cale immediately stepped in front of her, muscles coiled, amber eyes blazing. "Stay close," he ordered. "Do not look away, do not run. These creatures feed on fear, not on strength." The creatures lunged from the shadows. But Cale was ready. He moved with precision, his presence almost magnetic, pushing them back with a force Lyra had not known a human or an alpha could possess. Yet even as he fought, his gaze kept returning to her, checking that she was safe. Lyra realized, with a mix of fear and awe, that Cale's obsession with her was not merely desire, it was protection, it was connection, it was something she could not yet name. When the last creature fell, disappearing into mist, Lyra collapsed against a tree, gasping. Cale knelt beside her, his expression unreadable but intense. "You are safe for now," he said quietly. "But this is only the beginning. The curse, the hunters, they will not rest, and neither will the bond between us." Lyra's heart pounded. She had survived the auction, fled the city, and faced creatures of darkness. Yet she understood something chilling and true. Her journey, and her bond with Cale, had only just begun. She looked up at him, her voice trembling. "I don't know if I can do this." Cale's amber eyes softened, a flicker of vulnerability breaking through his strength. "You can, and you will. Not alone. Not while I stand beside you." Lyra swallowed hard. The pull she felt toward him, the bond she had tried to deny, was no longer something she could ignore. It was real, dangerous, and binding them together against a world of darkness that would stop at nothing to destroy them both. And somewhere, deep in the shadows, beyond the forest, an unseen force stirred, ancient and patient, waiting for the moment to strike. The true test had yet to come. Lyra's breath caught in her throat. Survival was no longer just running from hunters. It was facing a destiny she could neither escape nor fully understand, one that bound her to Cale, to the curse, and to a power that might consume them both. The night pressed on, dark and alive. As Lyra realized, the hunt had become something far more dangerous than she had imagined, and the bond between her and Cale was no longer a choice. It was fate. The dawn would reveal whether they could survive the coming storm, or whether the curse would claim them both. The first light of dawn barely touched the forest, pale and cold, yet it revealed every shadow, every twisted tree, every danger lurking in the undergrowth. Lyra stood at the edge of a cliff, overlooking the valley below. Her chest heaved with exhaustion, but her eyes were fierce. This was the moment she had been preparing for, though she did not yet understand all she could do. Cale stepped beside her, silent and steady. His presence was both terrifying and comforting, a constant reminder of the bond that had brought them together. His amber eyes scanned the horizon, alert to every movement, yet softening when they met hers. The keeper said this is where it begins, Lyra murmured, her voice trembling slightly. The source of the curse. Kale nodded, his jaw tight. Whatever is down there, we face it together. You are not alone. I will not let them take you. Not now. Not ever. Lyra drew a deep breath. The power in her veins thrummed with energy, like a river ready to break through its banks. She had felt it growing over the past nights, small flares at first, flashes of control and strength, but now it was roaring, alive and demanding attention. She could feel the curse reacting to her, responding to her presence. Are you ready? Kale asked softly, though his tone carried weight. Lyra's lips trembled, but she nodded. I have to be. Together, they descended into the valley. The air grew thick, heavy with magic and shadows. Twisted shapes moved in the mist hunters of the curse, creatures born of centuries of fear and domination. Their glowing eyes reflected the early light like burning coals. Lyra's pulse raced, but she did not falter. She felt the energy inside her respond to the threat, growing brighter, sharper, ready to protect and strike. Kale moved ahead slightly, muscles coiled, every step calculated. Yet, even in battle stance, his eyes never left Lyra. She could feel the bond tighten, invisible yet strong, a thread pulling them together. The creatures hesitated, as if sensing the same invisible force. Lyra raised her hands, and the air around her shimmered. The power she had always feared now obeyed her, bending to her will. Shadows twisted, winds shifted, and the creatures recoiled, as if they understood she was no longer prey. She could feel the curse's heartbeat in the valley, a dark rhythm that sought to claim her, to claim Kale, to claim them both. Kale's voice was steady beside her. Focus on the bond. Focus on the strength between us. The curse feeds on fear. Do not give it that power. Lyra's eyes met his, and in that moment, fear and doubt melted away. The bond was no longer a chain. It was a weapon, a lifeline, a bridge between them. She channeled her energy through it, feeling Kale's presence amplify her power, guiding her, steadying her. The creatures lunged, shadows forming twisted shapes of horns and claws. Lyra raised her hands, and a wave of energy erupted from her, pure and luminous. The shadows shrieked and dissolved under the force, retreating like smoke in the wind. Kale moved beside her, striking with precise, controlled force, driving the remaining shadows back into the mist. They reached the heart of the valley, where an ancient stone altar pulsed with dark light. The source of the curse. Lyra felt it pulling at her, whispering in 1,000 voices, promising power, destruction, and pain. She stumbled slightly, her knees weak, but Kale caught her arm. You are stronger than it thinks, he said, his voice almost gentle. Together, we can end it. Lyra focused, closing her eyes and reaching deep into her blood, into the ancient power within. The energy flared like a storm, weaving through her veins, connecting her to Kale, connecting her to the world. The dark whispers grew louder, but she did not falter. She raised her hands above the altar, feeling every shadow, every curse, every creature of fear and control pressing against her will. The energy exploded outward in a wave, white and gold, pure and commanding. The ground trembled, and the dark light of the altar fractured into shards of shadow that evaporated in the dawn. The curse howled, a voice of centuries, a sound that made the forest itself shiver. Kale's hand found hers, and together they anchored the energy, turning destruction into release. The valley trembled, the trees swayed, and the creatures born of darkness vanished completely. The forest seemed to exhale, the heavy air lightening, the shadows fading. Lyra collapsed to her knees, exhausted but triumphant. Kale knelt beside her, brushing sweat and dirt from her hair. Their eyes met, And for a long moment, words were unnecessary. They had survived. They had faced the curse. Together. The keeper appeared, silent, from the mist. "The curse is broken," they said. "But it was not only your power, Lyra. It was the bond you allowed to guide you. The trust between hunter and hunted. Alpha and mate. The world begins anew. Because of your courage." Lyra looked at Kael, her voice barely a whisper. "We did it." Kael's amber eyes softened, something vulnerable breaking through his usually commanding gaze. "We did. Together." They stood, side by side. The forest alive with the quiet hum of restoration. The shadows were gone. The curse that had bound the auctions, the hunters, and even the alphas themselves had been shattered. Lyra felt a strange peace settle over her. The fear that had haunted her since the auction had lifted. She was free not just from the hunters, but from the chains of fate she had always feared. And Kael? He was free too. From the rigid role of alpha. From the expectations that had once defined him. For a long moment, neither spoke. The bond between them pulsed gently, a silent promise of connection, trust, and something deeper. Something neither could yet name, but both could feel. Finally, Kael spoke, his voice low, almost reverent. "I could have hunted you forever. But now, I choose you. Freely. Not because of fate. Not because of the curse. But because I want to stand by your side. Always." Lyra's heart swelled. She had feared him. Feared the bond. Feared the pull she could not resist. But now, seeing the truth in his eyes, she realized that the connection they shared was not a trap. It was a choice. A choice of hearts, courage, and trust. She smiled through tears, her voice shaking. "And I choose you." Kael reached for her hand, and this time, there was no hesitation, no fear. They stood together. The forest around them alive with sunlight and wind. Shadows gone. Darkness banished. The keeper watched from a distance, then slowly disappeared into the morning mist. "The world is yours to protect," their voice whispered, one last time. "But remember, power is always a test, and love is the greatest strength of all." Lyra and Kael turned to each other, the bond between them now a gentle pulse, no longer a source of fear, but of strength. The dawn touched their faces, painting gold across the valley. The curse was gone, the hunters defeated, and the auctions a memory of a darker time. Kael's lips brushed her forehead, tender, protective. "We survived," he said softly. "And now, we are free. Together." And Lyra leaned into him, feeling the warmth and safety she had not known she craved. "Together," she echoed, her voice firm, her heart light. The forest around them seemed to hum in approval, the ancient trees swaying as if bowing to the courage and love that had shattered centuries of darkness. The wind carried their laughter lightly, a promise of days ahead, filled not with fear or control, but choice, trust, and freedom. For the first time since the auction, Lyra felt the full weight of survival and the unspoken power of love that had guided her through every shadowed step. Kael, once the alpha who hunted her in dreams, now stood beside her as an equal, partner, and protector. The hunt was over. The curse was broken. And in the quiet dawn, Lyra understood a truth older than the kingdom, older than the auctions. Courage, trust, and love could defy even the darkest of destinies. Hand in hand, Lyra and Kael stepped forward from the forest into a world made new, where they could finally walk together, not as hunter and hunted, not as bound by fate, but as two souls who had chosen each other, freely, against all odds. The shadows of the past had vanished, but the memory of their trials would remain, a reminder that love and courage were stronger than any curse, any power, any force in the world. And as they walked, side by side, the forest seemed to hum with life, hope, and a promise that the darkest nights could give birth to the brightest dawns.